Hello there, I'm Kios Ronin Beatmaker, and welcome to Lounge Ronin, all things, everything. And before we get into it, if you're new to the channel, please make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you enjoy the content. And please make sure to leave a comment with your thoughts below. And on this episode, we're going to discuss ancient Mesopotamian magic. Now, if you've seen some of my previous live streams where I have discussed various occult rituals and themes that you see scattered throughout our social media, films, sports events, music events. And I feel like when we, delve into this episode, we'll definitely probably get some insight into where a lot of these ruling elites and these hidden organizations and groups get a lot of their inspiration from. So, without further ado, let's get into it. All right. Now, this was updated February 16th, 2019. And this article is written by Sarah P. Young. All right, let's get into it. Ancient Mesopotamia was a vast region in Western Asia, which has become known as the cradle of civilization due to the huge number of feats the culture achieved. Agriculture, animal herding, and domestication had developed there by 8,000 years ago. By 3000 BC, they had created the world's oldest known cities and invented the wheel. And along with their advanced solutions to practical needs of a society, ran sophisticated traditions of occult rituals and witchcraft, which is clearly documented in the Macule tablets. And like I was saying earlier, I think we're definitely, with the whole idea of ritualistic magic and practices, we're definitely not straying too far away from what is being observed and practiced in real time in reality. It's kind of funny how with all these tablets. I mean, I covered an article about Jesus Christ possibly being a shapeshifter, and it came from this it was either a tablet or a parchment paper that had a little bit of an excerpt and a description talking about Jesus Christ as a shapeshifter, and it wasn't released to the public until I think 2017, when it was in the personal collection of J.P. Morgan. So ask yourself, why would J.P. Morgan need a tablet in regards to Christ and his ability to possibly shapeshift? I see we got some people in the chat for Rumble, some watchers. I really appreciate you guys taking some time to enjoy this ride with me. If you enjoy the content so far, please make sure to hit that like button. A rich record. A deep insight into the Mesopotamian civilization has been gained from the hundreds and thousands of tablets inscribed with cuneiform, one of the earliest forms of writing that they left. When cuneiform was deciphered by archaeologists in the middle of the 19th century, it meant that texts like the Epic of Gilgamesh could finally be accessed and appreciated. And the cuneiform tablet we have here is a Gula incantation. The writing on this tablet asks Gula and Marduk, identified by its surname Asalu, to help cure a patient who is thought to have been attacked by a ghost. Now, if any of you are familiar with your occult stuff, Marduk is not far off from some current modern day occult practices. The Mesopotamians were prolific in the scope of their writings, and along with the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Library of Ashurbanipal also contains tablets detailing military campaigns, treaties, detailed accounts of monarchs' reigns, and the Enuma Elish, the Babylon creation myth, and astronomical observations. Tablets found elsewhere discuss codes, laws, maps, medical manuals, trades, and domestic disputes, and diplomatic correspondence. The texts help to understand Mesopotamian culture and society, but among thousands of relative mundane inscriptions, there are some which stand out and highlight the more unusual aspects of life in ancient Mesopotamia. If you know much of anything about Mesopotamia, then you're probably familiar with the Anunnaki and the connection between the Anunnaki and Mesopotamia, and the greater worldwide civilization that may have one point populated this entire planet. So it's kind of interesting to see that maybe in some regards we could say that Mesopotamia could have been the birthplace of many types of occult practices, magic practices. It seems it's if it's the epicenter of civilization in many ways, it would be the epicenter of many forms of occult practices and magic that would then spread throughout the world. So let's continue. What is the Makul? Makul, which means burning, is a work composed around 700 BC, spanning 9 tablets. It details a ceremony which was supposed to thwart and drive away evil magic, protect the intended target from the bad magic, and weaken the person who was responsible for casting the malevolent spell or curse. Kind of sounds like voodoo, if you ask me. The first 8 tablets feature almost 100 incantations, and the 9th gives directions for the ritual. It is a work intended to aid an exorcist and his patient. So here we have the Assyrian cylinder depicting an exorcism. Now, take your put your constructive, you know, critical thinking skill cap on for a moment, and let's just entertain this idea. So you have a tablet here that describes how to perform exorcisms. And then, ask yourself, where do you think the Vatican, the church, gained any of its ideas and insights and skills into performing exorcisms? Now, I'm not an expert in any of that stuff. Like I said, let's just, entertain this idea for a minute here. We know that the Vatican has the massive libraries in the basement, which, which, you know, hold miles and miles of all sorts of ancient history and knowledge. And it would not be surprising to me that the Vatican would gain some of its knowledge into how to perform exorcisms from their pillaging and plundering of various ancient cultures. And this being here, we have this this cuneiform tablet, describing how to perform an exorcism, how to thwart evil spirits. I mentioned at the beginning of this paragraph, it kind of sounded very similar to voodooism. So this idea that, these many different religious sects and ideologies would not get some of their inspiration in their teachings and their practices from Mesopotamia would be foolish of us. It's interesting to me that here we have this tablet about how to perform an exorcism, and I don't know if anyone has taken a second and been like, hey, well, where does the Vatican get their knowledge on how to perform exorcisms? We know that the Vatican has pillaged and plundered all sorts of ancient cultures and history. We know the Vatican libraries are rife with things that would probably rewrite our history. And if you're someone like me who's a fan of hidden history, then you understand that our history is a lie. It's, constantly being manipulated, constantly being edited. And I just find, this little nugget of information, quite telling. But let's continue. Give me 1 second, guys. Okay, here we go. Did we read? Okay, the Malaku tablets, I apologize for these ads. I know they're a bit wild. The Maklu tablets give detailed instructions to burn a figurine. Now, what does that remind you guys of? Representing the witch in order to dispel the effects of their magic. And this ritual is what gives the inscription its name. For a text like Maquil to have been created, there has to have been some need in Mesopotamian society for a guide like this. What can Makul tell us about witchcraft in ancient Mesopotamia? I mean, but what can it also tell us about modern witchcraft and practices? And I just find it funny, the whole burning of effigies. And we know of a certain organization that likes to burn a giant owl at night that Alex Jones exposed. So these ancient practices are still being performed to this day. It's just that we are not privy to them, or we don't really connect the dots. And that's just me personally. I see we got some people in the live stream. We got 5 viewing. Much love. If you're interested, please leave a comment and hit that like button. And yeah, leave a comment. What are your thoughts on this whole practice of Mesopotamian witchcraft and modern elite societies? So, the practice of Mesopotamian witchcraft. Okay. Okay, here we go. One of the main aspects of witchcraft that Makul highlights in the Anatomy of the Witch. It is interesting to note the ceremony is not fixated on discovering who has been practicing witchcraft and wronged the patient. It chooses instead to replace the witch with the nameless effigy and trusts that the gods will know who the intended target is. We can also learn a lot from the fact that counteract evil magic, a magical ceremony was undertaken by an exorcist. Makul, along with several other Mesopotamian texts, paint a picture of a society where magic was practiced both legitimately and openly, and illegitimately and maliciously. I mean, I would say that's pretty much how it goes right now in our current society. There are plenty of instances and information. If you're into this stuff like I am, the occult and the rituals, it's prevalent. We see it openly right now. And I think what's funny about this is, we there are people out there who do practice magic legitimately, and then you have those who are like the Malachians or the Luciferians or the who practice, I guess I shouldn't say the Luciferians, but more the Malachians who practice such, evil ritualistic practices. I'm still learning myself, so if I'm wrong or something, please feel free to correct me. But I just think it's funny how, the way this article is written, and I guess it makes sense that it's written as if these things aren't going on still as, currently, which we all know isn't the case. Whether it's 9/11, whether it's the what was it, the San Bernardino shooting, any of these things, you look in, if you're someone who's into gematria, then you'll get where I'm going from. You'll catch my drift. It's all, very connected. It's all there for those who are privy to it, who are those who are aware of it. You'll start seeing these connections and these parallels. And I think, it's so funny, how we claim to be a very modern society, yet we are being ruled by people who practice such ancient lifestyles and ideologies and mysticisms. It's very interesting. Now, here we have a fragment of a talisman used to exorcise the sick from the Assyrian era. All right. It is implied that evil magic worked as the practitioners tricked the gods into believing they were assisting a genuine need. Oh, interesting. The ritual in Makul was supposed to work by revealing the deception to the gods so they would reverse what they had done to help the evildoer. But we can also build up a picture of a society in which good magic was an everyday part of life for many people. Now, one thing I find interesting about that, this idea of good magic, and I'm a Buddhist, so and for me, I view, when I do some of my morning meditation prayers or anything of that matter, I feel like I am practicing some form of magic. And I think even for people who are, whether you're a Christian, Muslim, whatever your religious ideology you believe in. You are practicing some form of magic. And even if you don't believe in a religion, but you are spiritual or you believe in the power of manifestation, it's very similar. These ideas of, of magic in the sense of praying towards something meaningful and genuine and something that can be beneficial to you. And I think in terms of good magic, I've had personal experiences where, you know, the prayers that I was saying every day, the mindset that I was putting myself in, it made magical things occur in my life that I would never have expected to happen. And I think for any of us out there, it is something to take into consideration and to be just mindful of. Even if you're someone who has like a lucky, a lucky ring, a lucky pillow, whatever it could be, a lucky, water bottle. Even that in and of itself is a talisman, you could say. And there is, magic, you could almost say, in that talisman, because anytime you've had that thing, you've had that with you, whether it's in competitions or just, day-to-day life, business meetings, opportunities, networking, whatever, and you've had it with you, boom, things work out in your favor. The magic is there. Opportunities, your team succeeds in the match or in the game. So it's kind of funny how all around us, you'll have people who, aren't religious, who are atheists or what have you, but here they have like a lucky item that they bring with them everywhere they go because they say, well, it always brings me luck. Everything works out when I have it. And I'm like, well, I mean, that's magic, I guess, in a way. That's a talisman. You may not think of it that way, but it is. I wouldn't say that to them. You might freak them out. But I just think it's interesting that, the similarities of our belief systems and things that we hold dear to us, and how because they hold dear to us, that energy that we give into it, it replicates and it supports us. And I know I might be sounding a little woo-woo and out there, but what can I say? That's what the Ronin's all about. But I think for all of us, we have to kind of take a reflection and look at ourselves and what things are we doing and acting that are in many ways magic. Even if you have, I have a morning ritual, a morning routine that I do every day. And in many ways that, that ritual, that routine, it puts me into the mindset to face the day, to face my challenges, to face, my goals, and to face my fears. And I think even in that, you're challenging, you're channeling, positive energy, positive magic into the air to motivate you, inspire you, discipline you. And I think that's something that's really fascinating about this. And I think also what part of the reason why our current society, we are not privy to the full capacity of our individuality, of our humanity. We have these ruling elites, we have these corporations, we have the poisoning of our food and our air, of our minds to suppress the infinite capabilities that our minds have. That the source, God, whatever you want to call it, the algorithm, it gave us this capability to do things that are completely incredible, but we have been suppressed. And when I'm reading through this kind of article, it kind of makes me realize, imagine the incredible feats and capabilities people had of that time, of that era. You may think to yourself, oh, well, they're using cuneiform, they're using tablets. They don't have iPads, they don't have any of these things. Okay, well, that doesn't matter to me. Explain to me why there are pyramids in China and there are pyramids in Mexico, and that there's a pyramid in Greece, and that there's a pyramid in Antarctica and a pyramid in Alaska, and pyramids riddled around North America and Indonesia in off the coast of Cuba. Underwater, there are pyramids. So, who, that type of technological feats and capabilities. So what if they didn't have, iPhones and Netflix back then? They had much better things than that. They had the capabilities of their fully functioning personhood and their mind. We don't have that now. Our minds are constantly being suppressed, constantly being manipulated, constantly being destroyed. And for what? For other people's benefits, for them to use our energy and siphon it for their own free will and their own power and their own control and the subjugation of us. I mean, it's all there for you if you're willing to be open to these other alternative views and perspectives and do your own research. I'm not saying anything that's really crazy or out of this world, not yet. But I think most people would be like, yeah, you make some good points there. I might have to think a little bit about that. I'm sorry, I just noticed a headline over here to the right that says, Girls Gone Wild, World Mythology's Most Sexualized, Crazed, and Ferociously Violent Goddesses. Oh, man. That sounds like a fun read. All right, well, let's get back to it. Well, I'll take a break from my Ronin rant. Mesopotamian omens. Akkadian was the language of ancient Mesopotamia, and although cuneiform was used over several millennia by a number of different ancient cultures, it is estimated that 30% of the surviving Akkadian cuneiform inscriptions about witchcraft and the supernatural. A lot of these are not witchcraft in the way we may think of it today, in the form of magic spells and rituals, but things surrounding the unknown. Here we have a cuneiform tablet, a fragment of a liver omen. Ooh. So now we have, you know, attacks that attack directly your liver and things like that. It's freaky. Although Mesopotamia was remarkably advanced in many respects, things such as celestial bodies and unpredictable natural phenomenon were not fully understood. These things were often looked to as a way of trying to predict and avoid negative events, and a lot of the surviving inscriptions are very detailed attempts to list omens and help evade disasters. One notable mythic text was the Enuma Anu Elil, which is details around 7,000 celestial omens relating specifically to the king and state. The king was sent regular updates and reports from the predictions by his personal scholars, who were tasked with deciphering the premonitions. So here we have a ceramic incantation bowl from the Sasanian period, 6th to 7th century AD. Another set of omens in the Summa Alul Inil Mekel Sakin, which consists of 120 clay tablets and over 10,000 ill omens linked to there being too many one kind of person at any given time. Okay, that's a weird way to write that sentence. Perhaps today these particular omens would be seen as common sense more than esoteric. Well, I mean, have you met our current society? There are a lot of people out there lacking common sense. One of the more unusual set of omens is the Summa Ezubu. These are omens which are connected to deformed human births and bizarre animal births, such as conjoined animals. They were not always negative, and they were often linked to the side of the body the deformity related to. A deformity on the right hand side was bad, but on the left, it may have been seen as lucky. Hmm. Professional magicians. Although many people believed in or ever practiced rudimentary magic, there were also professional magicians in ancient Mesopotamia. These professional magicians would have been specialists in a particular field of magic. Some would have been specialists in divination, while others would have been professional exorcists. As with other ancient societies, many of those who worked in a field that was not fully understood were considered to be magicians. So scientists, doctors, and astronomers were placed alongside mystics and exorcists. I mean, I could kind of see that in many ways. They're all, two sides of the same coin. Here we have a Pakalu figure, male, with a fish skin hood. During the Neo-Assyrian period, practitioners of magic protected interior spaces of buildings by uh, depositing an assemblage of figurines beneath the room's floor. The artifact probably served that function. And, I mean, people still to this day still use, figurines, for protection and what have you. You look at all the many saints in Christian religion. You still have plenty of people that have, Christian saint figurines. So, a lot of this stuff is still being practiced today. There's nothing new about it. It's also possible to specialize within these fields. One set of mystics who specialized in particular form of divination were the Baru, who made predictions based on reading the livers of sacrificial animals. Now, I don't know if any of you guys are aware of what happened recently with who's that rapper who's on trial? There's a big time rapper right now who's on trial. I can't remember his name. But recent court documents came out, and during a raid into one of his places, they caught a guy sacrificing a goat. Now I don't remember. It's the rapper who's like on trial right now. It's a massive case. And so there was a guy, part of his crew, that was sacrificing a goat for him. Now, like I'm saying, this stuff is still going on now. These practices, these, sacrifices. I mean, you look what's going on with the child trafficking down at the border or in Ukraine. I mean, over, throughout the entire world, and a lot of the horrific ritualistic practices that go on with these children, with these animals. I mean, it's no surprise. And with that rapper and that court document coming out that he had someone in his crew sacrificing animals for him, I mean, it's like, how more in the face does it need to be for, the mainstream person, the normie, to be like, oh, okay, so this stuff is legitimate. They're really doing it. It's like, yeah, these people aren't, crazy. The ones telling you that, these, rappers and Hollywood elites are, running around sacrificing animals and, fucking little kids. Pardon my language. Sometimes the Ronin just can't help but swear. Evidence of magic in day-to-day life. There's one tablet which provides evidence of everyday witchcraft, listing types of stones and their magical associations. So the user would know what kind of stone to carry to attract or dispel particular gods and goddesses. Now here's the cuneiform tablet with a list of magical stones. And I think this is kind of funny. It's, Um, whether it's, you might think, people who, work with crystals and different stones are kind of crazy, but, there's two different stones. I can't even think of their names that are quartz crystal for healingness and energy. I have one underneath my couch. I have one underneath my bed. I have another stone, a black stone, for sleeping next to my bed. And honestly, I've seen improvements. So I realize that there definitely is some truth to it. I also am getting into electroculture, and I bought a book on using various stones to help feed and fertilize your plants. So there's some really interesting, ancient knowledge out there that we just have to look for. And I feel like, it's also kind of like, if you don't, if you're not open to trying something new, you're not going to enjoy it, or it may not work for you. Um, and that's just my own personal opinion when it comes to things like that, magical stones. And I apologize if you hear a plane flying over. Wait till it passes by. Okay. Further evidence of the everyday belief in and practice of witchcraft is visible in a plethora of surviving artifacts. Clay figurines representing gods, animals, and mystical creatures have been found at homes across Mesopotamia, and they are often kept hidden in areas of the house that could have been seen as prone to access by spirits and demons. And just as a representation of evil which could be used to repel their magic in an exorcism, there is evidence that pregnant women wore pendants with representations of the demoness Lamashtu, who was known to attack pregnant women and infants in an attempt to ward off her spirit and provide a wearable form of protection against her. Interesting. And here we have an amulet with the Lamastu demon, which is kind of similar to the Christian succubus, if I remember correctly. This is I know there are several different ancient cultures that have a very similar female demon that likes to target women and eat babies. So, I think, that's also another aspect of it. Is like when you start seeing these similarities and the consistency of these similarities throughout different ancient religions and cultures, you have to kind of question whether there might be something to it. When cuneiform was first decoded in the mid 19th century, it made it possible to access hundreds of thousands of texts for the first time. It must have been surprising to learn people in ancient Mesopotamia were so advanced and made so many significant discoveries. It must also have been a major juxtaposition that a society which made so many logical and intellectual leaps would also believe so widely in magic, which is perceived by many today as irrational. But perhaps Mesopotamian belief in magic should be seen instead as further evidence of their rationality and intelligence. The ritual exorcism described in the Malkuth might be easy to scoff at today, but it provided comfort and reassurance to the victim. Perhaps more importantly, it dispelled and punished the witch anonymously, which avoided the need for a public witch hunt, something that would have ended in violence and confrontation. And I would kind of, I kind of see where they're coming from there, uh, to a point. But I think I would also kind of be like, we, as I've said earlier, and as I've covered a little bit earlier, we know that many ruling elites and these occult groups, they still actively practice, magic. They still actively burn, effigies. They still use these omens and these talismans. Regular people still use this. People who practice many religions still do. So it's there's nothing really irrational about it if you're not willing to, you know, be open to the idea that there is more to this world than what we are being educated and taught. And I found this to be a really insightful and great little article. And like I was saying, this whole idea of there not being that magic is this unknown, nonsensical, irrational thing is just foolish for us. And I'm not here to tell anyone how to think or how to believe or how to feel. But I think, for all of us, it's important to at least be a little open minded to these other forms of ideas and religious practices and cultures because, as I've been, learning more and researching more and studying more, I'm realizing that a lot of this stuff is real. It's capable, it's possible. Um, and it's all about your perception to reality. And even with this whole idea of magic from Mesopotamia and referencing Marduk and certain things, we know that those are things that people actively practice and celebrate now. So I just find it really fascinating, for me personally, as I've been learning more about these these occult rituals and these themes and these magical practices where they will manifest certain outcomes and events to happen, whether in their favor or to cause a sort of unbalance in society that allows them to then step in and implement some sort of agenda or take power. And I just find it really fascinating and compelling. And I think for anyone out there who's been listening, and I really appreciate everyone who's been listening on Rumble. I appreciate everyone who's been listening on YouTube, on Twitch. This is just really interesting stuff, and I hope any of you guys out there, take some time, look into this stuff. Do your own research on this stuff. It really is fascinating. I highly recommend you check out the Tinfoil Hat with Sam Tripoli, his podcast that has a lot of interviews with actual alchemist practitioners, magicians, witches. Actually, the Higher Side chats with Greg Carlson. He has interviewed an alchemist and a witch. And when you listen to those interviews with these people, you start to realize, like, they're some of the things that they're saying isn't really all that out of the realm of reality. It's really fascinating stuff. So as I wrap this up, I just think everyone out there just take some time, be open minded to these new ideas and concepts, and the as I like to put it, as the veil continues to be unlifted, more truth is going to be revealed to us, and it's up to us as individuals, as free thinking people, as self-motivating people. How are we going to take that information in? Are we going to allow it to control and domesticate our belief system, or are we going to maintain our unconditional love and our individual thought and freedom of expression? I hope you enjoyed this episode of Lounge Ronin, all things, everything. And if you made it this far and you've enjoyed the live stream, please make sure to hit that like button and leave a comment with your thoughts below and some constructive criticism, as both a like and a comment will truly help this channel grow. And please feel free to share this out with any like-minded individuals or anyone who you feel like challenging their foundational belief system, as I love to do. And until next time, stay positive, stay focused,